This is Thomas Cadet calling the BBC in London from the headquarters of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in Paris. The NATO Council met here again today at ministerial level with the foreign, defense, and finance ministers of the 15 member countries. Defense questions have been on the agenda all this week, and there has been some discussion about the relationship between so-called conventional forces and the nuclear deterrent.
Supreme commanders, chiefs of staff, soldiers, sailors, airmen, the military and the civil, ministers of state, ambassadors, diplomats, civil servants, presidents even. Rank or status, however, is of secondary importance. Each is a servant of people, which is why he is here. Each session finds the press impatient for details of what has been said and what may still be said, on the record or off. For the matters discussed claim the attention of the world, which just shows how times have changed. Once, for the majority who took no part in it, war was something heroic, colorful, romantic even. But then it was a purely national affair, in which attack was slow in coming and allowed time for countering, even some time to spare for ceremonial. Now, the ceremonial of science, strictly applied. Red for alert, yellow for luminosity, green for go. Now, only speed, mobility, and power can ward off aggression. Power incredibly technical, astronomically costly, a burden that could never be borne by one country alone, let alone a small one, fully occupied with the business of living. A country like, well, let's say the Netherlands. Small, yes, but proud of what it has achieved after centuries of experience. A country not trusting in sudden revolution, but believing in the steady processes of evolution. Inequalities may be, but disappearing slowly and surely, for like the cannon, they too are anachronism. A hard-working people that have known war and hate it. The Netherlands. Next to them, Portugal and Norway. Denmark, France, and the Federal Republic of Germany. The United States, Britain and Turkey, Greece. Iceland, Italy and Luxembourg, Belgium and Canada. 15 in all, each with a place at a table, a round table with no sides, no ends, because here each has an equal voice. For this is NATO's headquarters at the edge of the Bois de Boulogne, Paris. The start of another day, with its stream of work-bound, like wage earners in any other occupation or trade, each with his hopes, cares, worries, and ambitions. The common round, the daily task. In this case, to serve the organization born on April the 4th, 1949, when the governments that signed the North Atlantic Treaty were, and I quote, resolved to unite their efforts for collective defense and for the preservation of peace and security. To NATO's headquarters, too, come visitors from all over the world, in little groups and special tours. journalists, or sociologists, teachers, students, or just interested parties. Their first experience, a briefing on the whys and wherefores of the strongest peacetime alliance in history. A union that drew its name from the wide Atlantic. Well, gentlemen, we need not go into great detail as to why the treaty was signed and why the West had to rearm. NATO, as you know, came into being as a direct result of the Soviet threat to Europe, both military and political. Its first task was to rebuild on an international basis sufficient strength to resist attack. Not an easy task for countries already hard hit by war. Emphasis was on what we now call conventional forces, and what the military call the shield of NATO. Needless to say, it was a long haul and a slow one. But with the years, the necessary strength was built up, enough at least to make any would-be aggressor cease to count on a walkover. At the same time, we did not and could not neglect the so-called sword, the deterrent forces based on massive nuclear retaliation. Thus, the primary aims were achieved. But what is more interesting is the method by which they were achieved. The method. A committee of the North Atlantic Council, one of 150 committees meeting regularly. In conference, the slow way, but the democratic way. Present a case, argue a point of view, discuss it, take a little, give a little in one of two official languages.
Monsieur le Président,
Chairman,
j'ai fait part à mes autorités
I've told
de
my
l'échange de vues
authorities
qu'il y a eu au
about the
cours de la
discussion
dernière
which took
réunion.
place at our last
Ils se
meeting.
sont trouvés d'accord avec le
Present, argue, discuss, negotiate, so that 15 sovereign governments may arrive at a common point of view to agree on a common line of action. Their subject matter? The whole vast field of collective defense. What sort of weapons? Can we afford them? Who is to make them? Could more than one country combine in their production? And where shall they be based? Who controls their use? Who gives the order to fire? Then what about the essential support and all that goes with that? Which, out of all the systems of this and that, is the one to be adopted? And having selected the best, can we keep up the supply? Who is going to train the specialists needed to operate it? And what language will be used so that the operation is efficient? And again, how can we share the burden of the cost? One of 150 committees dealing with political affairs, production and logistics, economics, finance, or science. Often slow to reach agreement because 15 have to be satisfied. But when agreement has been reached, then the wheels can turn. For this is not only a talking shop, but a place where action is taken as a result of the talking.
Eh bien, madame, ne quittez pas, je vous prie.
Each government has a delegation to NATO headed by an ambassador. He presents his national case, reports back home, and tries to meet his allies halfway. Supporting these nationals, the International Secretariat, men and women from all NATO nations whose business it is to keep the machine running, to organize the meetings and iron out the snags, to record the decisions, to type them, to produce the documents which make discussion possible, to distribute them. "400 copies of this action sheet, please, by this time tomorrow. 200 English, 200 French. Yes, restricted to delegations and secretariat." Just one order among many. These are the keepers of the action sheet, the minute and the record, ready to produce them when the agenda calls for them, the servants of 15 governments working as though for one.